everyone, I'm Priya, the host of Fitness Founders Podcast, where I interview boutique fitness entrepreneurs to learn about their journey and inspire other studio owners. Today, I'm excited to welcome Jon Bond to the show. Jon is the founder and gym owner at Hybrid Gym LA with over 30 years of experience at sports performance coaching, strength and conditioning, and martial arts. He's a Brazilian Jiu Jitsu black belt, passionate about helping athletes improve their performance and mindset. Jon, it's a pleasure to have you on the show to share your journey with us. So thanks so much, Jon, for joining the show. I'm gonna ask you a lot of questions. So excited to know about your story, but I
Yeah,
want to start with sharing my own story. Not mine exactly, more for friends. So in
yeah.
2017, one of my friends signed up for a gym membership. She paid 10 grand and stopped going on day three. So the trainer would call her, text her. She would end up ghosting her, him, and then basically she wasn't motivated, right? And then she would simply I think she wanted to join it because it seemed cool, and one of her friends had joined. And then there's you who's built a whole gym business on this passion for fitness, right? So how did you get into fitness? What's your story?
How did I get into fitness? I've done this literally my whole life. So I grew up just massively into sport and being active, just from school. I got into boxing as a kid, so I got into boxing. I got into lifting weights fairly young, around like 14. Um, so I always trained. And I won't bore you with the long story because I'm kind of 50 years old now. I've done this for quite a long time. So I did leave school with like zero qualifications, and I just got a job. I didn't really know. All I knew growing up the way I grew up was you leave school, go get a job, and try and get something you might enjoy. So I got a job as a mechanic initially, working on cars, which I do have a passion for cars, but after sort of 2 years of that, a couple of years, I learned very quickly that it wasn't really what I wanted to do. Standing around in overalls, covered in oil and all that sort of stuff wasn't really the lifestyle I wanted. And
Mhm.
interestingly enough, this is back in a time where working in a gym wasn't really a thing. Like I came from a small town in the UK, and the only gyms really at the time were old school bodybuilding gyms. The guy that ran it owned it, didn't really have
Mhm.
staff. He'd open up at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. People would go and train after work, and that was it. So he didn't need staff. It wasn't a big setup. But health clubs were just starting to become a thing. So old school sports centers were starting to turn some of their areas like into a gym, because they used to do things like squash courts and even old school like snooker halls. All those kind of things were there back in the day, and fitness was becoming a thing. So they were kind of ripping those out because they weren't making much money and putting gyms in. So it was actually a conversation with my mum of all people at one point where I was just sat. I was like 19 years old. I'd been being a mechanic for a few years, and I was like, Mum, I don't enjoy any of this. I don't know what I'm doing with my life. And a few of the things were going wrong in the background as well. From a, I wasn't, um, I was getting into some illegal stuff and things that I probably shouldn't have been doing. And I was like, I need to find something. And it was actually my mum that just said, look, you've trained your whole, I was only 19, but she's like, you've been training since you're like 10 years old, exercising, fitness, sports. She's like, is there nothing in that world that you could do for work? And I was like, don't know, I never thought about it because it wasn't a thing back then as a career. Anyway, I looked in the local paper back then. That's how you look for jobs and things. And I saw this gym instructor course and was like, oh, okay, well, maybe there is something. So I booked onto this course, which was at a gym, like a sports center, local sports center. So back then it was like 2 weeks fully inclusive in the sports center. I was on the bus every day. Um, and luckily, I trained in the gym at lunch every day, which is how
Mhm.
I've literally got nearly every opportunity for my whole career, which is why I'm telling you this part of the story. There was
Yeah.
like 20 odd people on the course, and I was the only one that went in the gym at lunchtime. Everyone else just sat and ate. And I was like, no, I've got to get a workout in. And the
Okay.
gym was looking for some staff, and one of the other staff was on the course. And I think the manager at the time must have asked, what do you think of that guy who's on the course? We're looking for someone. Do you want to ask him if he'd be interested in maybe a
Mhm.
part time job or something? So before I'd even finished the course, I was getting offered a job in the gym. So for me, I was like, great, I made this change, went on a course, and now I'm working in a gym, which turned out to be
Just happened
initially
to you. It's like
a lot of
you
cleaning.
manifested it kind of. I
Yeah,
don't
so
know.
that was the start. That's how I got into it, and then from there, I've been in this industry now for 30 years, from one thing to another. But that was the starting point, bit as a fitness instructor.
Right. Right. No, I think very well answered because that's what I was looking for, and I do want to get into the business side at a later point of this interview. For
Yeah,
now, I think the kind of story that you were doing, coming across that ad in the newspaper, looking for a job, from mechanic, from having a passion for cars to ending up into fitness. That's a great story. And speaking of, you did mention that you were boxing also as a kid. Yeah, I don't
yeah.
know at the age of what 19 you mentioned, or was it before that?
No, before that, I started boxing when I was about 12.
10, 10 or 12.
So yeah, at high school, a couple of my friends, my family, my friend's dad, he was a boxer, and we were friends. So me and my brother, both of our friends were in the same sort of year at school. My brother was 2 years younger than me, and they both boxed. And we used to hang out with them. So that's kind of how that came about. And they were like, "Oh, just come to the gym with us." So we're a boxing family. Like I lost my dad when I was like 11, so I started hanging out with those guys, and we was at their home quite a lot. And like I said, his dad was a boxer, so I followed into that route a little bit. I was never overly good. I just enjoyed it, still do. So I got into boxing, amateur boxing, had a few fights, kind of fell out with it a little bit in my teens because, again, I kind of went off the rails. A lot of things were, I guess, I was just rebelling to a lot of stuff and trying to find my way, like a lot of kids. But and then when I found the fitness industry and I got my job in the fitness industry, and that kind of pulled me back into some sort of, I guess, normality. I started boxing again throughout my 20s. And then, I left my small town, moved to Manchester, which is a bigger city in Manchester in the UK. And I started getting into MMA and jiu-jitsu and all the other stuff. So when I quit boxing, I was still wanting to train, and that's what took me into the MMA world and jiu-jitsu and things like that, which was a whole other world. I spent the last almost 20 years in jiu-jitsu, MMA, from training, fighting, coaching, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's kind of, but yeah, I started that young, and it's been a bit of an on and off journey in the fight world, but it's always been there, and I've been engrossed in it at more times in my life, from either a training and a working and a coaching point of view. And then because I've done the personal training and the gym and the S&C and all that sort of stuff, there's been times I've had to refocus more into the gym world, especially as I got a little bit older and training took a bit of a backseat. But I've always done both, and my gym now has both. We do boxing, we do personal training, we do weightlifting and stuff. So
No, for sure, Jordan. I think what I'm seeing is I think this whole, workout or fitness has been around or has been attached to you in some or the other way, right? Be it from childhood in the form of boxing or, fast forward to your, yeah, I mean, the time that you got into, fitness and then gym for that matter, right? So I'm glad that it happened to you. And you finally felt that I'm doing something that makes me happy. Because I think when you were into the other form, like when you were just a mechanical person, right? You weren't really
yeah,
enjoying. And I really want to ask this as my next question. How does your day typically look like? Of course, before starting this, we did speak of things are very different right now, and you're trying to figure out. But what does your routine look like as a fitness business owner?
yeah. I mean, it can change a little bit, but generally, depending on my commitments, like I'm in and out of the day to day with the gym a little bit, depending on staffing and things like that. I can, come one minute I can be coaching a one-on-one session, or I can be coaching boxing class. Generally, I get up pretty early. I'm a bit of an early morning person. I tend to get up early over my coffee, take a look at emails, see what's going on, anything I need to kind of address, any team issues, what I've got planned for that day. I also do quite a lot of the education with the coaches. So some mornings I'm kind of planning that. So I deal with my emails and kind of work and business stuff early, get that kind of done. If I've got meetings scheduled for the day, they'll tend to be late morning or early afternoon, depending on my schedule. If I'm planning education, I sit and plan that out so that I know what we're doing with the team. We do that twice a week with the team. Then it's kind of my wife. She's my business partner and obviously partner. So she's big. So she's very good at the she's a great coach as well, but she's good at the admin. She's good with marketing. She's good with a lot of the things that I'm not so good at, which is great. So then we sometimes sit and talk like, how's the marketing going? How the leads looking? How many consults have we got this week? What are our sales looking like? And if we've got issues there, we're like, okay, what are we going to do about that? What adjustments can we make? If things are good, short conversation, let's just keep going. So really, it depends. There's a lot of fighting fires, and there's a lot of different things each day. I tend to try and get my workout in. I'm a bit of a morning person, so I'll get up at like 5:00, 5:15. I have a couple of dogs, so they're first. I have to take them for a walk, and then I get on with some work. I come into the gym pretty early, get some stuff done, and then around 9, 10 o'clock, I try and work out. And that's kind of my thing. I need to get my own training done. If I don't get that done, I get frustrated. So I usually have that done sometime before lunchtime. Grab some food. At the moment, I do the boxing classes at lunchtime, so I'll coach those. And then usually for me, I'm kind of done as far as having to be in the gym around 2:30ish, if I can. So I'll go home, take an hour or so's rest, and then maybe do another hour or so's work, 5-ish, 5 till 6, depending on if I've got something to do or something to prepare for the next day. And that's really it. And it can be more chaotic than I've just made it sound. It really just depends what's going on. And if
That's life.
if some of the team have issues, all of a sudden that's a sit down and we have conversations here and there. So yeah, it really depends. But that's generally my structure.
Sure, sure. And then thanks for sharing that. I think two things I'm taking away from this. One is, I think I'm so glad that you have a perfect partner who's a life partner, come a business partner. So, your wife plays that role, and that's great. And second thing that you mentioned was you need that, workout for yourself, right? If you don't do that, I mean, you really need that me time or self care time, right? So I
Oh,
want to ask a question around that. What do you do in your free time? And what does John do when he's not focusing on business for himself in his free time?
not a lot. And I do think this has been like a blessing and a curse.
Uh-huh.
Like fitness, training, sport, like those things are kind of my life, and I'm not really into much else. So when people say, "Oh, what do you do to switch off?" I'm like, read about training, watch sport. Sport's probably more of a switch off because watching sport uh, is obviously not quite the same as doing it. And I watch a lot of sports, especially in the US, things like football and basketball that I've not really ever played. So it's not like there's any relation there. Although when I watch UFC and boxing, that's a little different. So I'm not. I'm not. I like my coffee in the morning. I don't. It's a little sad to say, but I don't do too much else. I would like to travel more. I do like traveling. I like going and visiting different places. The businesses, you learn about. You realize that running a brick and mortar business, and so many people are running online businesses now, and they're all over the place. They can work kind of from anywhere. Again, it sounds great, but obviously you're away. You're still working. But being here, sometimes it's difficult to take time off. So holidays are not as frequent as maybe they used to be right now, especially with the business still being fairly new. Like the gym in LA, we're just starting our 4th year now, so 3 years in. So still not in a position where we can be like fully, hands off and traveling wherever we want. So traveling would be something I would like to do a lot more of. But yeah, my normal free time is not a lot, and and when I do have it, yeah, I sport. I like to go out for some food, movies. But yeah, other than that, nothing too exciting. I don't have this big alternate life where when I'm not in the gym, I'm not either thinking about the gym, studying about
Which is
training.
cool, right? Your life revolves around that, and that's great. That's great. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. It
Yeah.
doesn't allow for much switch off time, but it does allow for like my brain is constantly churning on things we can do better and improve. So which I think it kind of has to be. Hopefully there's a time I can switch off a little bit more, but right now that's not it.
I can totally relate with you on that because, like, as a marketer, right? And I'll tell you, like, I do a lot of things to switch off, which is like music is my thing, right? And other things I love to cook. But marketing is one thing. Like, next time thinking of more strategies, this happened. Could I have made a better plan? Maybe in that consultation call, could I have given
Yeah.
better ideas? So when you live your passion, right? When you work and on your passion, maybe that's how it is, right?
Well, I
So I
think
totally
things
get
move
that.
so fast nowadays. I mean, I'm on the other side of marketing as a consumer and trying to work out the best way to market everything. And no
Mhm.
sooner if you nail something and it's changed, the speed at which marketing changes nowadays versus years ago. I imagine your job's difficult because no sooner have you got something working and there's a new trend out, there's a new amount of time that your video should last, there's a new type that just what people are, will click on. It's
Mhm.
insane.
It's not easy. We're always trying to do a lot of things and experimenting and A/B testing and whatnot. So coming back, right? You did mention about your life revolves around gym. I got that, and I love it. What inspired you to start hybrid gym? Let's talk about it and let's get into the business side now.
Yeah, so the hybrid gym came about. So I was working for a previous company in Hong Kong, and they were personal training only, and I learned a lot there. Really good place to work. I'd never really been, I guess, had my eyes opened to what I would call, from a financial point of view, pretty high end personal training. I was working previously in Manchester in the UK. Um, and Manchester's not like London, although there's money there. It's not full of super affluent people, and the personal training hourly rate was okay. It was average. Um, let's say if I use like probably like the equivalent back then. This is like 10 years ago, so an equivalent of like $50 US an hour would be what we'd roughly charge. And then I moved to Hong Kong and I got a job with this high-end personal training brand, really fucking good at, sorry, swear, really, really good at what they do. And it's immediately they're charging like $150 an hour, if not more. So, which to me was like, wow, that's like insane money for personal training. Um, and luckily, like my part of my role, I got a job as the general manager there. Part of my role was sales and things like that, which was good. And because I didn't really fully understand the currency difference, the change between what I was used to in British pounds and now Hong Kong dollars, um, I just started reeling these numbers off like it was nothing. I think if I'd have gone to another company in the UK and gone, okay, you're going to go from selling yourself at like $50 an hour to 150, I would have maybe felt a bit uncomfortable with the sales process. Not selling the gym. I've never felt like a salesperson. I
Mhm.
just talk about the benefits of training, exercise, good nutrition, what I've kind of done for my whole life. So I've never seen doing a consult with somebody as like a sell. But obviously, when the money part comes up, it can be a little awkward. So luckily, I got over that really quickly by not really understanding. I knew it was expensive, but I was just like, "It's this much, this much," and people were signing up, and obviously that was a reputable company. So I got into sales. I understood the sales pitch. I got into educating trainers, managing trainers. The management stuff I already had a lot of experience in. So I like to think I'm quite good with teams and team building and building a team and a camaraderie within that. And then, you know, the usual kind of conversation started to come up. I had a client who I'd been training for a couple of years, and he was kind of like, if you was ever to do your own gym, like, first of all, it was like, is there good money in gyms and stuff? And I was like, I don't know. I mean, there's good money in this one. There seems to be. Again, it's very interesting what you think you know versus what you realize you don't know when you actually do it properly. Because as a coach on the other side, you don't know the costs, you don't understand all that. You just do these numbers based on, well, we're doing this many sessions, we charge this much, this gym's making this much money. Um, so that conversation came about. We had another guy who was an investor who wanted to put some money into a gym, and it was just conversation at the start. And it was like, if you were to do your own gym, what would it be? And I was like, look, my whole life, all of us were into fight sports, MMA, UFC, so that was part of it as well. And I was like, look, if I could do my own gym, I'd do a personal training gym a little bit like this, which is what I was in. Said, but I'd add group training, which I've done my whole life, and I'd have some sort of MMA component, like a hybrid, which is obviously what we're called and where that came from. We were kind of interested in doing a UFC style gym at the beginning, and that we ran numbers on that, and it wouldn't work in Hong Kong. And that's when we pivoted to doing our own version of that, basically. And that's how that kind of came about. So it's kind of like, there was a lot of talk, and then one day the money was there, it was real, and it was like, look, do you want in? Um, and this would be, as one of the owners and co-founders and all that sort of stuff. So I was like, yeah, I mean, it was one of those, I either keep working for the company for the rest of my life, or I give this a go. So yeah, that's how that came about. That was about 6 years ago now. Um, so, so yeah, and then again from there, learn an awful lot of stuff the hard way. Realize what I didn't know about business. My expertise, luckily, was I understood gyms. I understood people. I understood how gyms worked and all that sort of stuff. What I learned from my business partners was how to actually understand numbers, run a business, what it takes to do that side. And I'm still learning a lot on that side. I'm a coach and I'm a gym guy at heart. I'm not. I tell everybody I'm not a business person. I have a business, but I'm not a business person.
Right. And John, if you don't mind me telling, which year did you start Hybrid Gym?
Which year? I'm terrible with years. So what are we now? 2024, 2018.
2018. And, I tell you why I asked this. How did you feel when you were starting up? You just now said that, you've been a coach, you're good at this, but when it comes to the business side, you don't consider yourself as somebody who's an expert. And I'm sure you're great at it. You're just being modest. But how did it feel starting up? Those initial thoughts as the new entrepreneur.
I think starting was exciting, right? So the start, and this is what I think, I now try, if I'm talking to people about setting up their own business, and where's the money coming from and the investment? Because when we started, the investor that we had put a lot of money in, and initially it was very much like there's money there, and you've got all your working capital, and what I really enjoyed was building the gym. So working with the contractors, looking at what equipment we were going to get, being on site every day while the gym was being built. I really love that stuff, and I've done about 5 gyms now in my time, 2 from my previous company and three here. So I love that part because that's all exciting, and you're not making any money yet, so it's just building. And in my world, I'm kind of like, well, I'm being paid just to build a gym right now. And then there was the hiring of the team, and the training up of the team. And at the start, it's all super exciting, and I loved all that part. And then slowly, like anything, reality sets in. You get over the first month, 2 months, and your costs start to become a reality. Your revenue and what you're making is a reality versus all the numbers that you created on your spreadsheets, that this is how many sales we need to do, this is how many clients we need, this is what our costs will be. And then you're like, okay, our costs were not quite accurate because this was more expensive than we thought, this was a bit cheaper. Payrolls more than we thought it was going to be. And you start juggling, and then the sales are maybe not quite what you thought they were going to be. So now the revenue's not quite as high and your costs are higher. And that's when it kind of started to get a little bit stressful. And that's when I really, I've always been a bit of a stats and a numbers guy. I'm actually quite good at that part. But I did find juggling and managing the finances very stressful. I still do. I find it very difficult because, when you have months, especially early on, some months you make a bit of money, some months you're losing money, not to overthink. And I had to learn to not be too month in, month out, and then try and look at numbers over a quarter, because that could look a bit better. You're like, okay, well, we made money this month, we lost money the last 2, but actually we're about even, rather than the doom and gloom of we lost this last month. Or maybe you lost on a couple of months, made on one, but the 1 month you made actually had you up. So looking at things in the bigger picture, but also trying to plan ahead. So yeah, it was a bit of it's been a roller coaster, and then when we set up LA, it was the same. There was the influx of kind of money all of a sudden. There was the excitement of the new gym, the excitement of getting LA off the ground. And we were building that during COVID. So I was quite lucky that in some ways that the build out was during COVID. And I was luckily still getting paid, through the Hong Kong business, because a lot of people, were losing jobs and not being paid. So I'm very grateful that I went through that and didn't kind of, we didn't run out of money during that phase, if that kind of makes sense. But then, yeah, the same thing. We got open, and the first 6 months is a bit of a blast because everything's kind of going up, and the numbers are always trying to. Because you're kind of starting with nothing, so it's hard to go the opposite way. And then again, 6 months in, reality starts to kick in, and some costs were not quite what we expected. Revenue is good, some months not so much others. So yeah, it's I wouldn't necessarily do anything else, but when I do talk to people about going into building your own business, I do now talk about it in a very different way. There's a lot of people, especially on social media and whatnot, that are selling, the dream, business gurus and all this sort of stuff, and they talk like it's easy, and I'm like, mentally, it's a very, very different ball game. And I talk to a lot of young coaches now, and they all want my job. They all want to run a gym, and they all want to do these things. I'm kind of like sometimes like, look, slow down and enjoy being a coach, because I remember those days, and I loved it. I didn't have any money, but it was, I also didn't have much responsibility other than to my clients. So you have to really be ready for this. And I'm not sure if anyone ever really is. And by ready, it really depends on how it goes. Like if you happen to open up in the right place and clients are just walking through your door, and I won't say it's easy, everybody has to work hard at this, but it's definitely easier for some people, others, depending on how the business is going. If the business is struggling, then psychologically it's very hard, because it's your money draining away. It's not somebody else's anymore. It's coming out of your pocket, and you're like, okay, how much longer can I go with this? And then you have a good month and you're back up again. So for me, that's where I struggle. The emotional roller coaster. I'm an emotional guy at the best of times. I'm very logical, but I'm run by my emotions. So when I'm up, I'm up. And when things seem down, I'm like, I have to kick myself a little bit to get myself out of that. Not so much doom and gloom, but over worrying about a bad month and then not really celebrating a good month. Like I'm not very good at that balance. I go more towards problems, I guess, than things we should be celebrating.
Yeah, we tend to do that, and I think that's something none of us do. Celebrating those happy parts, because rewarding ourselves is important, right? We've worked hard for it, but somehow it's like, let me make it better. You just focus on the problem part, definitely. And like I said, right, it's like a wave, so it's very subjective, and people feel that the grass is greener on the other side. I can do this. I have a hobby. I can, having a hobby and building a business out of it are like two different things. So, rightly
Very,
said,
very
John.
different.
Yeah, and then so you were doing so much, right? It was a roller coaster, like you rightly mentioned. But did you have any help when all of this was happening, or were you alone? How did you solve all these issues, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, look, we've always had some sort of. I've less help now. I mean, it's literally just myself and Danny now. At the start, I'd got my business partners were obviously quite heavily involved in the day to day. They're no longer part of the company, so I don't have help so much there anymore. And then I had help from the team, so people we developed, especially into management positions in Hong Kong. LA was still kind of working on developing people, so that's a challenge. So, but you do get more. I have noticed that it gets more lonely running your own thing, because it is different, and especially when I've always seen fitness and the gym as this social part of my life. I'm not the most social person in the world, but I have always been around, and I don't think I've always appreciated how much I've been around, other people to learn off, work with, pick each other's brains, and what it was like when we were all a bit younger, especially again, working for a big company like my previous company. There was lots of other managers managing other gyms. There was lots of head educators, and everyone was kind of building out new things, new ideas for sales. I know it'd get shared around, and new direction here, and even just on the education and programming and nutrition, and everything was kind of getting updated, and you just feel like you're growing all the time. And then when all of a sudden that's kind of gone, and you're the one, having to deal with the business, deal with the finances, deal with marketing, deal with sales, and then you continue. How are we developing our product? Is the product getting better? Because personal training is a product at the end of the day. Things evolve. You know, that's when you are sort of really like you're looking around and kind of being like, who's helping me here? Where am I getting my ideas from? I always used to work with a lot, so I still try and go on courses. I have a lot of people in the industry that I try and touch base with and talk to, and I should talk to them more often, because that's what usually reinvigorates you a little bit. Talking to other people in the industry, talking to other business owners. But it's not as on hand as it used to be. You have to, like, in the past, it's like, my previous company had like 20, 30 gyms. So, you're on weekly meeting calls, you're on all sorts of stuff that you didn't really have to plan. And then you had your team, and I had assistant managers, I had people that were working with, all part of the same company. Now you're having to kind of remember to make time to be like, to touch base with someone, your contacts. Hey, do you want to have a catch up? How's business going? Some of it's to pick brains, pick ideas. What are you guys doing? Some of it's to be like, oh, so you guys are, struggling with this as well, like some sort of, I don't want everyone to struggle, don't get me wrong, but that little bit of commonality of like, okay, it's not just me. It's not that, we'll fix this, but at least it's, it's not just me that's going through some of this stuff. And I think if you don't communicate, you can end up down that rabbit hole if you're the only one with all these problems. And you're not. There are people to talk to. You just got to remember to do it. And I think I've noticed, especially somewhere like LA, you get very isolated. LA's a very spread out city. You don't go for a walk and bump into other people from other gyms and stuff like I've done in small cities. Small cities, everybody. I've got to LA and I don't know anyone. And I've been here like 4 or 5 years, and me and my wife said the same thing all the time. We're like, it's so isolated here. You just don't get to know anyone other than, your gym members and your team. So
Well,
it's different.
I totally get that because I talk to these other studio owners, right? And one thing they tell me is, I do have my team. Yes, I did expand after a point, but I have this feeling that I need to do everything by myself. They have this feeling, and they have to wear multiple hats because here, like you said, right, when you're working for somebody, yes, you have an agenda set up, you have meetings, you have team members collaborating, but here you're initiating everything, you're owning up everything, right? You're on top of the numbers and worrying and so many problems, right? So I totally get where you're coming from. Not the first one I'm hearing this from. Every studio owner mostly, tells this to me. And John, you also mentioned about the product side, right? So I want to talk about what services you offer, what's the workout style, products, merch, just a little on the services and offering side.
Yeah, so I mean, our number one product is personal training. So one-on-one, in-person personal training. We focus quite heavily on, our typical client is generally, fat loss, wants to look better. And I believe no matter what, that's 90% of the industry. So we cater to that. We have systems in place from the training program that the trainers are expected to kind of deliver. We have systems for everything. So for all the training and all the nutrition side of things, not something I've necessarily invented or created myself, but from things that we've done over the years that I know, especially over like a 12-week package, which is our sort of standard package that we sell people. This is what you can expect in 12 weeks if you come and train with us. This is going to be the training style. This is going to be the nutrition setup. And this would be the expected outcome from a weight loss point of view or muscle building point of view, whatever the person's goal is. So we're very precise with that on the personal training front. We focus heavily on education. So like I said, 2 times a week, we educate the coaches, or I spend a lot of time educating the coaches on, latest practices. And not just the training. I think the training and there's the training and the nutrition, but there's the application where I see a lot of trainers struggle is they don't apply what they have learned very well. And the fitness industry as well as I do. There's a very low barrier of entry to the fitness industry. And my whole career has been about raising the standards. If gyms are going to charge $150, $200 an hour, you better be worth it. So my thing is always about standards. We charge a lot of money, and I expect our coaches to deliver the highest level of service and professionalism possible, which isn't always easy because, I remember being 20-something, a 20-something, trainer back in the day, and you don't take life as seriously necessarily. And maybe you don't, realize what a 40-plus-year-old professional sees as a professional service, right? So I have those battles, but personal training is our number one thing. We have small group training, so fitness training, so like hit style training, Metcon. We have boxing, which is the other major thing that we do, and then we do some online coaching, which is it's not something we massively push, but it's something I do want to work a little harder on developing, because I think having that, again, it's building our presence, but also, being able to help people that can't make it to the gym. I think having an online program is useful, but that's mainly our things. Merchandise, we have supplements, so we sell supplements to go along with our nutrition programming. Um, that's about it, really. We do little runs of t-shirts and hoodies and stuff every now and again, but it's certainly not a big part of what we do. That's just things we get in, and uh, we
No, that,
yeah,
that
we do
that's
different
about.
designs here and there, but that's not really a big part of our business. I'd like it to be. I think the merchandise and the clothing's quite cool, but it's a whole other world to make money on.
Yeah, that's there for sure. And speaking of money, right? I think at some point you mentioned about, we do charge higher because we want to meet those standards, right? Our standards are higher. We offer, quality, and that's why we charge more. I want to get into the marketing, pricing side,
Yep.
in a bit. But before that, you did mention that you're not really a social person, but I have this question for you. What are some of the events that you never miss, or those communities you're a part of, or those people you look up to when it comes to fitness industry?
And you know what? Like most recently, I don't go to many events. Like I've never been a big events person. Like there's the fitness expos and stuff. I did go to the fitness expo in LA last year because it's literally next door. Like our gym's close to it's the crypto.com arena now, but that's where the convention center is. So I went to that last year. For me, I try to go on courses. I have a few friends in the education space. I try to make that part of my thing so I can meet other coaches um, and kind of learn new stuff that way. Because I like in-person stuff, but there's just there was a phase where there wasn't as much of it. But yeah, from a fitness social point of view, again, not as much as I would have done, before owning a business. Again, and I don't know if other people say the same thing. It's one of them, you should do it more really because you should network, but you get yourself so tunnel vision on your own thing that before you know it, a year or two's gone by and you realize you've not really gone out and seen what else is out there and where fitness trends and marketing and all this sort of stuff is going.
Mhm.
And that's a little bit on me. Yeah, I'm kind of old school. I
That's
know what I like, and some of the future stuff of fitness I should definitely pay more attention to, but it's also not my thing.
Mhm.
And it should be. I'm trying to get better at it. There's a lot of stuff going online, apps, AI, there's all sorts of stuff that the industry is moving towards. But I'm still old school and I believe very much in practically being in the gym, doing the work. I'm all for tech if it can aid what we have to do physically, if it can aid and make it easier to stick on your nutrition plan and things like that. But when it gets to a point where people are relying purely on tech, I kind of I shy away a little bit from that. But that's why eventually, hopefully, I want to, in order to develop some of those things, have a younger team under me that go that route. I need to get out my own way and let the youngsters, the whole point of developing this gym is to have, youngsters take over it and take it in a direction one day where I would probably never have taken it just because I'm a little old school.
No, no, definitely. It's like what works for you. Like I know people who really like attending events and being out there and networking, with like-minded folks. And then there are those people who like listening to podcasts, right? Because that works for them. So
Yeah,
maybe,
podcasts I'm more into. I sit and
yeah,
listen to that all the time when I'm
yeah. I
driving.
think you mentioned about courses, right? Those
Yeah.
work for them. Well and good. But I tell you why I ask these questions, right? Because the one takeaway from this entire podcast interview, when you're taking all the time, is to inspire, new studio owners or other studio owners so that they can grow their business just like you have done,
Yeah.
right? So when you mention course, do you have any name on top of your head, something that helps you? And if you don't
Courses.
have, that's absolutely fine.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, I do a lot of stuff with Prescript.
Uh-huh.
Dr. Jordan Shallow and Dr. Jordan Junter, they're like the founders. I believe, and again, they're good friends of mine. I met Jordan, well, I don't know, maybe 6 years ago now. Uh, when he was just kind of starting out, their business is huge now. I do believe that they're taking education in the right direction when it comes to um, bringing things back to anatomy and physiology, which I think got a little lost in personal training kind of courses, um, and understanding how to put programming together. They have nutrition stuff. So, they have the 3 levels, personal trainer levels now, or coaching levels, level 1, level 2, level 3, which I've done, which are amazing. Um, the level 3, you end up going on site and working with top athletes, which is also a massive experience. So it's hands-on and practical, and there's not as much practical stuff anymore, and that's why I like their stuff. And then they have other people do smaller, shorter courses. Dr. Dwayne Jackson does a lot of their nutrition. So it's a lot of, there's a lot of, they're very, very high level coaches, and they all have doctor in front of their name for different reasons. So but they all train. And what I love about them is they have that full on training background, as well as, both the Jordans are chiropractors initially, but high level powerlifters, high level Olympic lifters, came from a sporting background. So, they're not just, talking about anatomy and physiology as they see it from like a physio type standpoint. They apply it very well to training and then nutritional stuff. So for Prescript, it's probably it is my go-to, and it's what I would recommend any coach go on, in my humble opinion.
This one. And John, so when I work with other, studios, right? I work in this, three buckets. There's ops, there's,
Yeah.
member experience or client experience, and then comes the marketing, right? So I kind of wanted to dive into each of these, starting with marketing. How do you do your marketing? What do you do for it? Like, how does it look? You did mention that
So
your wife takes care of it. I'm not sure, but yeah, how is that?
marketing is like for the last 6-7 years, I think marketing has probably been my biggest nemesis. And I think, you probably speak to a lot of other business owners who have the same kind of experience. I think initially when I started out, it was a lot of being, I don't want to say being lied to, but the way marketing companies, I guess, assess what they say is success versus what I see as success with marketing campaigns, right? So I've learned a lot, and I won't bore you with the full story, but I have learned, I do understand the difference now between, lead generation and brand awareness and all this sort of stuff. I've worked with some good marketing companies. I've worked with some terrible ones whereby, you're just, the communication is slow, the adjustments are slow. One thing I've learned with marketing is whilst there's a lot of patience needed to be had with certain campaigns, at the same time, you have to know when to adjust and pivot quick. And I get frustrated when I work with companies who are very slow to communicate, very slow to make changes. Like if you just cost me a week of leads and inquiries because you haven't made the changes that I'm making, yesterday. Right? I get I'm maybe not the only client. So I learned early to be like, right, okay, I am not a marketing expert. And you can show me all these pivots tables, you can show me all these graphs, you can show me all this stuff on engagement, and don't take this the wrong way, but I'm like, I don't care. And I say this now to marketing people all the time. I'm like, all I care about is how many people are coming in my gym for a consultation. That is what I call a result. If you tell me that I've had 300 clicks, but I've had no consultations, I'm not interested. So I've kind of learned to understand how marketing teams and whatnot work, but also how to now cut out the noise and go, it's not working. And we need to make some adjustments, or you need to make some adjustments. Some marketing companies are better than others. I've gone through phases with some marketing companies whereby, they put the ads out and they do the thing, but they really want you to do all the work. What offer would you like to put out? Right? How would you like this to look? What wording do you want? I'm like, hang on, you're the marketing expert. Like I have a feel to my gym. You can get on my website, you can take a look at what we do, you can have a conversation with me personally. For me, a good marketing person should get to know me pretty well and then go, okay, based on you, your company, your vision, where you want to take it, what you sell, this is how we would try and market this. And these are the kind of things you should do to attract business. And then obviously your job is the target audience and things like that. So we do most of our Instagram, Facebook, as far as just our own pages. We do that ourselves.
Okay.
So we have one of the coaches who will take videos every now and again. Danny takes videos, films stuff. We do our own stories and our own Facebook and Instagram pages.
John, just asking this. So you're saying these things for acquiring clients, right? This is how you acquire clients?
Yes, this is how we acquire clients. Yeah. And then we do EDMs, so email marketing works quite well. We're not one thing we need to get much better at is building our email marketing list bigger and bigger. But we do email marketing, so we usually send out 1 to 2 emails a week, and then we have a person that helps us. She works specifically in the fitness industry with paid ads, so she does all our Facebook paid ads and paid ad campaigns. We've worked with her for a couple of years. She's been really good. Again, market, some things hit, some things don't, but she's very responsive, very quick to communicate, very quick to make adjustments, and take our business personally and understand that if we go a week with no leads, that's too much. If we go a week with not making any money, it's a problem. And I think sometimes when I've worked with bigger marketing companies, they don't get that part. They're busy with other big companies, companies that are probably paying way more than I am, and they see those guys as a priority. The small guy here is like not a priority, but I'm like, yeah, but if we make no money for a week, that's a huge problem. So that's been my challenge a little bit with marketing. I guess yet to really hit what I would call a sweet spot in our marketing, where we have certain things that seem to tick over and work all the time. Our months can be still very hit and miss, depending on what campaign we've got out, depending on the time of year. We still have good months and bad months, and it's still hard to sometimes fathom out what's working and what isn't. But yeah, that's where we're at with our marketing. That's what we kind of do. I don't want to be relying on paid ads all the time, but LA is a big place, and one thing I do notice is if we don't run paid ads, our total lead generation volume is down. So,
John, when you say paid ads, right? Just curious here. Is Google ads and Facebook ads both, or is it just both of them? Right?
Yeah.
Right. And what about sales? Do you do it yourself, or is there?
I don't personally anymore, unless Danny's not here. Danny does most of the consultations, so she's very good on the sales front. I mean, we both come from that background, having worked with our previous companies of being gym managers that had to do the sales. So that comes quite naturally. And obviously, we're selling our own business and what we do. So as I said before, we're both very similar with our sales approach, as in we don't really see it as sales. That's why we're obviously so big on getting people in the door for that consultation. We'll take up to an hour easily sitting and talking to someone about what we do, our programs. It's almost like a first session, the type of conversation and questioning we have. It's all about, what have you done before? What are you looking to achieve? Listening to their story, trying to work out how we can help you get to where you want to get to, and then obviously present our solutions to them based on what they're looking to achieve with our systems, our training, our nutrition, and previous results we've got with other clients to be able to show, look, this person came in presenting very similar to you. This is what we did. This is how they looked in 12 weeks. So, but our sales approach as far as in person is a conversation. It's not, we don't have a full-on sales pitch as such. There's a lot of things we say within there, but we're just explaining what we do.
Got it. And one more question, John, and you can answer if you're comfortable. I'll tell you why I asked the sales part, right? I do hear again a lot of owners saying that we get a lot of leads, sure, but the conversion is usually not that great, right? People showing up to the gym or studio for that matter, right? So how's that for you? That lead or those trials to membership conversions, how's that?
I think a lot of that comes down to how you filter out. So I think there's two different approaches. I think some places or people or whatever will get everybody in no matter what. So let's say you have 30 leads, you'll bring all 30 consults in, but you haven't really, depending on what your ad is. I know a lot of personal training gyms won't put their prices out on their ads. They might put that they've got a discount going on, 20% off, but they don't say the amount. And the problem with personal training is, to a certain degree, and gyms in general, but definitely personal training, is the price difference can be massive from one gym to the next. Even in the same town, same area, from high-end expensive personal training to, we have a Gold's gym down the road. They're charging like $30 an hour. I don't even know how they do that. But obviously personal training is not their number one thing. They have a membership, right? But people are coming in with different expectations, and you don't know that. So clearly, if I have 30 leads, 30 inquiries, and 15 of those inquiries, their expectation is $30 to $50 an hour. And I sit them down. I can talk to them for an hour, and I've done this. And they're like, oh, wow, this sounds amazing. And then I tell them the price, and like, oh, wow, it's like 3-4 times what they was expecting. So we take the approach of, cutting those leads down by back and forth on email or message, at least initially, to be like, okay, what are you, now we've got the lead. What is it you're interested in? This is what we do. This is our pricing. Would you like to book a consultation? Because we know that if they look at the pricing and book a consultation still, now we know that price is not necessarily going to be an issue. Then it comes down to, do they like what they hear? Maybe price is still a bit of an issue, but they've seen the price. It's not a shock and a surprise anymore. And that kind of helps with our close rate a little bit. So we'll do less consults, but the close rate's a bit better by the time. Hopefully we've nurtured them enough that by the time they get in here, they know what they're coming for. And then it's just do they really want to spend that amount of money? It's not the amount of money as such versus how we explain what we do. They've got it. It's just sometimes last minute you can be like, okay, do I still really want to spend that amount on this? But we've whittled it down. We're not wasting our time with 10 or so consults where, money was clearly going to be an objection, from the start. You can upsell someone $10, $20 an hour if that was a bit more than their expectation. You definitely can't upsell someone $100 an hour if their expectation was 50 and you're 150. That gap's too big. So that's how we get around that a little bit. It is scarier because sometimes you have less consults, but hopefully by the time they come in, they're a bit, like I say, they're more nurtured, they're much closer to signing up than if you just smash all the consults with spending a lot of time on people that were probably not going to sign up in the first place.
So, John, 2 questions here. One is, you mentioned about nurturing, right? And I love that myself because that's where most conversions happen. So what channels do you guys use? And second is, what do you do for retention, making those clients stick?
So the nurturing part is usually email back and forth. We still work with that. We've tried, WhatsApp messaging leads and things like that. It's not really ever worked that well for us. I know a lot of people do. I know definitely online coaches, it's a lot of direct messaging, through phones. We tend to still keep that through email. And then retention is probably our biggest difficulty in some ways, because what comes with being expensive and what comes with working on 3-month programs is the expectation of getting that person from A to B in that 12 months time. And you really are relying on then, the service of the coach, the value. So retention for me is all about, is the coach delivering the level of value that the client needs? And does the coach really understand what the client values? Because every client values something different. And I have this constant conversation with my coaches all the time. Coaches are very good, and I don't mean this in a disparaging way at all, but coaches are very good at thinking they know what they're good at, thinking they know why their client values them. Oh, it's my knowledge, it's my personality, it's because I train them hard, it's because of this, it's because of that. And I'm like, have you ever asked the client why they like training with you? No. Like, maybe you should. So we try and get as much feedback as possible, because if you're missing, you can be a great trainer, but if you're missing the bit that the client values and you're not really picking up on that, you could still potentially lose them. Once you kind of get a feel for why that client really likes training with you, why do they like training here? Why do they like coming to hybrid? What is it about us? Whilst I still obviously I clearly expect super high standards on the gym floor, training, nutrition, follow up, you can lean into the bit that they really value. And a lot of the times trainers miss that. They don't realize that just because you value yourself, no different from me, that whatever I think I'm good at, if I ask 10 people, they might all go, that's not why we like you. They might like me for the reason. And I'm like, oh, that's why you train with me. Much better to know what that is and lean into it than not know and assume it's something else. And then wonder why you may be losing people. You're doing a lot of the right things and still losing people. So for me, it's first of all, I know what adding value is as a trainer from the technical standpoint. Now it's the tangible. What is the client seeing? What is it that they value out of the coach? And can we figure that out in that first 3 months time frame? Because if we can figure that out, we can lean into that, and then that helps the coach retain those clients much better if we understand what it is that the client's valuing.
And John, thanks so much for sharing that. You shared with so much patience. I really appreciate it. Two more questions, which are,
Yep.
kind of my favorites. One is, when did you pay yourself the first time from this, hybrid gym business, and how was the feeling?
When did what? Sorry.
When did you pay yourself the first time, like the paycheck? And from the
I mean, I was lucky because I had investors initially. So I was paid pretty much from day one as part of my deal for coming on board. But what I will say, the last year or so, that has all kind of changed a little bit. So I've kind of gone more on my own with the business, and now my pay depends on how we do. So it can be up 1 month, down the next, and that has took a lot of getting used to for me. So my journey's kind of gone the opposite way to some. I started out being paid no matter what. And then as working capital and investment and obviously everything ran out, it became on me. So the last 12 months or so has all been kind of literally my own funding. So in order to balance the books each month, I'm kind of like, okay, I can afford this, take this much this month. I can only afford this much this month. And that's been a hard adaptation for me to be like, okay, obviously my personal bills have to be paid. The business bills have to be paid, and how can I juggle that each month? I don't come from a lot of wealth, so I don't have an abundance of money. So when the investment money ran out, you really relied on the business supporting everything, which is the challenge. It would be much easier if I had millions of dollars in the bank. And then, to be honest, if I had that, I'd run a gym for free, because the business side stresses me out. If I could run a gym one day and not charge anybody, and I'd have to be like Elon Musk. But that would be my dream, not to care about the business, just have a gym that people can come and train in.
Wow, that's a lovely dream. I was going to ask that question though. You did mention you're almost 50, right? So what
I am
next?
50. I turned 50 this year, so it's been a strange year. I've never bothered about an age or a birthday in my life until this
Shouldn't.
one. First one where it was like, okay, that's getting old.
No, come on, that's not old at all. I get that. So this one question, right? What's your advice for a studio owner starting up? You've shared so much already. I know that. More like a concise answer.
So my number one piece of advice now would be to don't do what I did. So don't think you know it all. Get as much advice and help as possible. One thing I wish I could have done if I went back would have been to have more conversations about what running a business and owning a business is really like. What were the hurdles? What were the headaches that those people kind of had? I get people reach out to me now and ask, and now I'm very honest. I don't want to put people off, but I'm very honest about what's difficult about it. I can paint the rosy picture of, if it all goes well, this is great. You're going to get your own business, get to do your own thing, but you realize that you don't, and you're somewhat always managed to a certain degree. Once the business is making money, maybe not so much, but if you've had to finance things, if you've taken out bank loans, if you've got investors, these are now all your bosses. So whilst I've got no boss, it's like, you have the bank manager's your boss, your investor's your boss. So you are accountable to a lot of things. And for me, my number one piece of advice would be, talk to as many other business owners that maybe even take on board a mentor, someone who's run businesses for a long time, who's willing to help you. I'm not sure if you can find someone in your network that's willing to kind of talk to you and help you with their own advice. That would be better, because they're invested in just giving you honest feedback and advice. There's a ton of people that do business mentoring that you can pay. I would be cautious about trying to find a good one, because clearly they're there to take your money. And if you're not careful, they're taking money from you. is it benefiting you? Or is it helping you grow and build your business? Because it's building theirs. So ideally, there's a lot of people in the personal training world. You do have clients that are CEOs that have run businesses. You should hopefully by then, know a few people that have run gyms that speak to as many people as possible, get as much advice as possible, try and get as much help as possible, because it can save you thousands of dollars in mistakes that you don't realize because you think you know it all. And most PTs are not. We're not business people. We don't come from a business background, but we do love the gym. And
Yeah.
Sometimes that love of the gym and the love of wanting to help and please people does get you in trouble when you realize, okay, but there is money involved, and we do have to manage that, and we do have to understand how our business runs and all those other things. So yeah, my number one is get help, get as much help, get as much advice, listen to people, and when you have issues that you don't know about, don't just try and fix them on your own. See if there's someone you can reach out to and be like, hey, I'm having this issue, what would you do about it? And you might not take the advice, but it's better than just doing it and making a ton of your own mistakes, especially if they're costly and financial mistakes. Like businesses can't afford that.
Of course. So everybody who's going to watch, our episode after this, that's some great advice coming from one of the best in the industry. So thanks so much, John, for sharing that. Just last three quick questions, more again on the business side. How much time do you spend, on the ops or the admin side, or do you spend at all, or do you have a team for that? How is that?
Operations not as much really. Like Danny does a lot of that stuff. So again, she's admin, whiz on a computer. If you ask me to build out a spreadsheet, then we could be here weeks. I can read a spreadsheet. I can do data. So ops, I'm very good at the data. So I have other people pull data for me. My role is very much like I need numbers on this. So in other words, I will spend a lot of time looking at stats, whether that be what are our sales stats, what's our retention stats, what's our results stats. And then I might break that down by trainer and look at their stats. I might break that down by trainer and all their clients. I look at the client stats, which trainers do, got the most clients losing weight, which trainers are struggling, because I put all that into the service and the product side and the education side. So by looking at the business stats, whether it be from a trainer performance, client results, that all helps me improve the education and coaching of the trainers and improve the product. And then from the sales point of view, it's really, again, it's just stats. What are our leads? What are all the numbers? Are we going in the right direction? Not. And if we're not, what are we doing about it? And then the what are we doing about it question kind of is partly on me about what ideas have I got, what ideas has Danny got, and what ideas has our marketing person got. Really, that's just the three of us that work with the marketing side. And then the rest of the ops is just day-to-day shit, man. The team do a lot of that. So we have the team, do the towels and stock the fridge and the kind of ops stuff. So yeah, I don't do operations as far as a ton of admin, but I do pull all the stats, and that's where I kind of tend to manage the business through numbers.
And what about marketing? You did mention that you do have somebody who has a lot of experience in the fitness industry, and great for you. But do you guys also use any marketing tools?
What do you mean? Probably. What do you mean by tools? I'll tell you.
Any marketing tool, like some people have tools for like sending emails. Some people have for automations.
Oh yeah,
those kind of tools.
I don't know which ones exactly.
No,
again, that would be a question for Danny. Yeah, for our EDM, we have marketing tools but as to where we build it and how we send that all out. I think we use MindBody for quite a lot of that stuff now. We've tried different places, but MindBody have got better at having everything in one place. They have their own tool for EDMs, and you can build all that out on there. Whereas before we used different companies, but then you're pulling your database from one thing to another to send stuff out. So, but right now, still very simple. We don't have big tools. I know some big companies use things like Salesforce and big stuff like that, which is really expensive. And for a gym, we don't have the numbers of people to need a big sort of management tool like that.
Yeah, and John, this one last thing: how do you deliver an extraordinary member experience? How do you do that?
For me, I think it all comes down to the education of the coaches and, like I say, understanding. The one thing I try to drive home with all our coaches and trainers, and something that I was taught, early on as a trainer and a coach is being a coach is kind of like a performance, right? You're there to serve the client. So from the minute the client walks in, you're on, right? And that doesn't mean you're being false or being like an actor. I just mean, a good coach by the way they make you feel. And whilst it's real, it's also this performance that you have to be consistent with. You can't be up one day, down the next. Clients walking in one day, you're bouncing off the walls, all happy and buzzing and enthusiastic, and the next day you're kind of down and quiet. And clients are coming in for a very, in my opinion, a very consistent service, a very high level of professionalism. I want clients to leave the gym every single session is a performance. Every single session, I want that client leaving, first of all, feeling a lot better than when they came in. But second of all, could I have done that on my own? I don't want, if clients are walking out going, could have done that on my own, then why are they here? And what was the use of the coach that day? If that's how they're feeling. And that doesn't mean to say you have to annihilate people in every single workout, but that extra rep here, that extra few seconds, that extra little, whatever it is, that extra little bit of weight that they didn't do last time, and just highlighting progression is how I believe, delivering kind of high level coaching should be. You can't always teach personality, but when we try to hire based on, is this person going to be a good fit for the type of coaching we want to deliver? So yeah, that would be my answer on that. It's a very visceral thing. You sometimes kind of have to see it. But I do, one thing we do get a lot of good feedback in is even when people are a little bit hesitant on the price, when especially if they've had trainers elsewhere, when they do get that first couple of sessions in, we do get the feedback. Okay, now we get it. We get why you're different. We get why you charge, because the attention to detail that I like to believe we offer. Not just inside the gym, but outside the gym does stand out, but you have to feel that.
Right. No, that's what I said. That's actually good that, even if the pricing is higher, as long as they're able to see the value that you're bringing, right? Why the pricing is higher. You've done your job. That's all that matters, right? So on that note, John, thank you so much for sharing everything so patiently. That's all I wanted to ask you.
No, but thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
That brings us to the end of today's episode. Thanks so much, John, for sharing your story with us. If you're looking to chat with John, be sure to connect with him. The links are available in the description and podcast notes. And do not forget to subscribe and follow for more Fitness Founder stories.